Hey, this is Professor Homa following up with GRD131, Graphic Design 1, for your alternative assignments for your Tuesday class that we missed on the 25th of October. And I just wanted to go over a couple things rather than do something brand new, which I still might. I might put something together, something small, but I wanted to have you make sure that you go over these. A couple people have finished these, and I even want some people to go back and revisit these a little bit. And I have some critiques or some suggestions that I'm going to go over some of these that I already have. So if you haven't finished these, make sure you finish these and take your time with them. And then also make sure that you watch these videos down here. And I went over these in class, and maybe you were paying attention, maybe you weren't, but they're short videos. They're like 3 minutes. Watch these again and then take the quiz on them. There's a quiz on them. So take the quiz on them and then go back and revisit your logos. I'm going to go over some. I think I have like 5 files I'm going to go over quick and go over some suggestions for you and try to demonstrate some things for you. And then if you haven't finished these, go over those. If you haven't finished your logo personalities, go through them as well as your logo combo mishaps. Don't rush through them. Go back to them. A lot of these I want people to kind of go back and revisit a little bit. That's why we're going over things, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go into Figma and go over some of the files that I've gotten so far and just give some suggestions. And hopefully that'll help others. This isn't just for the people who turn them in. This is for everyone. So I want everyone to watch the rest of the video and kind of follow what's going along and take some of those suggestions. That way we don't have to do it in class. You could do it on your own and watch what I'm doing here. Then we could just get back to work in class on Thursday. So the first one I'm going to go over is this one. Let me just open it up. And I always like to look at things from far away first, just to see how they're holding up at small sizes. And the first thing I notice on this one is that can be a little hard to read when you're overlapping shapes and type. And also you want to think about, if I move this away, does it look good without it? Does it exist without it? And I say no. I think it's a little off right now. Let me zoom into it a little bit more. And let me just check the typefaces. This is Playfair Display. This is Playfair Display. I'd be careful with something like this with real fine lines at small sizes. Not that it looks bad, I just think it's going to be hard to reproduce at small sizes. This at a larger size is okay. It still has fine lines in it, but this may be an issue. So what do you do with that? Again, you might look for a sans serif. And without taking much time, I'm just going to go and throw it in Roboto or something like that, because that's the quickest one to find. Because Roboto has like lights and things like that. So I'm going to go put it in a light and see how that looks. And you might want to put it in caps. You might want to go into the 3 dots here. If you ever need to put it in caps, just put in caps like that. And again, because that's big, separate it. Then you could go here and separate it with the letter spacing. Take it out like that, something like that. And you also might want to make it small. How do you make it small? Using this scale thing that I discovered instead of messing with the point sizes makes it go a little bit small. So could do something like that, spread it out even more. Those lines aren't as fine as the ones that were in there. Now, what do you do with this? Well, this looks good here. I like it just floating free and keeping it open instead of overlapping. Now, you don't have to put it in between anything. Even if you just did something like this, I think that looks okay, just so it's not too big, it's not overpowering. It just adds a little something. Now, you could put it at the end. You could put it up here. You could do something like that. I think zooming out, it looks a little better, looks a little cleaner, a little more organized. It still has some movement. It's centered here, and you could even use this color. You could go in here and go into color, wherever the color is here, that's for the fill, and use the eyedropper and take it from the leaf. Now that may be a little light now. You may want to switch them around, but that may be a little light. You may not use the light font. You may use regular. Maybe that looks okay. So something like that. That's all I suggest for that. I look at this one here and I think, how would this look on its own? I pull this away and it's not bad. You got to be careful. This looks a little bigger than that. I might try to scale this up a little. Now again, to scale, I have to use the scale tool and just go on here a little bit. I want that a little bigger, I think. And I don't mind the line. The line adds something and it kind of is like that line. I'd kind of move this away a little bit. I might, again, spread this out just a little bit more. And then maybe make it a little bit smaller. So I'll try to scale. I'll try to zoom in here and scale a little bit. Sorry about that. And scale it down So it's kind of more like the line, something like that. And then I might even make this the same color as the leaf. I'll bring the leaf back in. Now I think the leaf is too big. Again, the leaf is too big. It doesn't need to be that dominating. It can be rotated a little bit so it fits in that nook. It actually fits in that nook nicely. I might make the color a little brighter. And you could actually take this and put it in that color. Go down to fill, take the eyedropper, make that the same color, and leave that black. You could make the line green or not. I'm not sure if I'd make the stroke that color. Possibly. That could look nice. Does it look nice like that? If you took the leaf away, does it work? It does. I think that's okay. That's all I'd recommend for that. This one, that works on its own, like that. That's kind of a neat logo. I might spread out the lines a little bit and make sure they're the same size. Again, I'd be careful about the overlapping. You know, it's not the greatest graphic, this wine glass that I put in there, because it has fine lines in it. But you could do something like that where you kind of stand it on there. I don't know if you could put it aside of it, and maybe something like here where it's kind of coming out of it a little bit. Now, I'm not going to do the complete work because I want to keep moving on here. But you could have something that comes out of that side a little bit like that. If you kind of stretched it a little bit, if you kind of move that, something that comes out of the glass a little bit. I guess that's all I'm thinking there. I'd just be careful about overlapping it, find a way to make them work together. And then you could still use it with the glass and without the glass. The fish tank, I'd just be careful because I think the fish is very overpowering. I like the movement and everything going on, but it's just really overpowering the graphic of the fish. And it has white outlines, so it makes it stand out from it, but it just seems a little dominating of the fish. Now, I'm not sure if that's a big problem or not. I'd probably just take it down a little bit. So it's not so overpowering over the name of it, especially if you got down in size. And here it actually works overlapping because of the white outline. And I'm looking at it at a small size, so that's not bad. You could rotate it up a little so you see his mouth going up a little bit, but I would just adjust the size. That's all I do on that one. So that's all I do on that, and, you know, make some tweaks there. All right, let me go to the next one. This one is kind of missing some elements of what comes forward and what doesn't. You know, this oak hollow's in this font here. Let me go here and separate this. I'll make this a little bit bigger. I think there's, let me resize the box here. And I'll scale it up a little bit, and I'll just kind of work with this font right now. I'll keep it black right now and get rid of one of these. Now, obviously, you want to change the color of this. This is very light, but I wouldn't want to have estates in that same font. So I might take estates and put it in something. Now, I'll just do this for now. I don't mean you have to do this, but I'll put it in Roboto for now, just as a quick fix. I'll just try Roboto, and I'll try Roboto Light. And you'd have to use something light because this is really light. You got to be really careful with something like this. And I would do it in all caps. I'd make it really small. I go down here to the little dots, make it all caps, and I'd spread it out, make it real small. A lot. I don't know why that comes up when I do stuff. It's a newer laptop, so I'm not used to it. But I'd have to make this small, so let me scale this down. And they don't have to be the same width, but I might stretch it out just a little bit more. And that way you have a light font and a light font. Now, I'm not adding any color yet, and I don't have to. Maybe you don't want to add color yet. I might keep the leaf going in the same direction as the type because it's kind of italic, scripty, moving that way. So I might go in here to Object, Flip, Horizontal, and get it going in that direction. Maybe. I mean, that might look okay. Maybe it looks good the other way. Let me undo it. Maybe it looks good kind of going against that. But either way, I'd make it smaller. I wouldn't have it so dominating. And maybe have it up here a little bit. Maybe away from it a little bit, so it's kind of flowing up there. Again, Maple Hills Retirement Village, you know, I'd make this part bigger if you're going to do that. I'm not saying that's a bad font, but make sure something is standing out and something is secondary. This one here, now this looks like kind of a display font, so I don't know if there's a lighter version of it, and it doesn't look like there is. So using two displays. So if you're using display here, then maybe here you use something else and bring this down. Now it's hard to see without a color as well, but it's a little, for a retirement village, it's a little on the harsher side. I might look for something a little more conservative, not so bold and kind of harsh in terms of its lines and things like that. But right off the bat, you got to get the relationship a little bit better here. Same thing down here. This is kind of not bad. I don't mind the typeface. It's kind of a nice typeface. I might use something different for the, and sometimes you could use something scripty. Let's see if I can think of a scripty right off the top of my head. Maybe dancing script. That's the only one I could think of for that. Now, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I just thought of something like that to kind of bring it together, to kind of make Wine Store stand out. Maybe to put the wine part in a particular color and kind of match the wine that's in there so that it works on its own. I want to make sure it works on its own first. And all these things, you want to kind of resize these boxes to do like the auto width, auto height. Same thing here. I'll go to this one and I'm doing the auto width, auto height. And now that kind of looks more like a logo. Now maybe this thing is a little on the bigger side. I might go to scale here and scale that down a little bit, but you could put it here. You know, you can move this up here a little bit, make them work together a little bit, but you could do some things to make this look more like an image on its own. And then you could bring this in. Where do you bring this in? You could bring this in here. You could go right next to it. You could go on the side here. Maybe you need, move this one over a little bit. So now they kind of align towards the glass, and you could put that in a little nook there. That way, maybe you need it. Maybe you could use the glass, maybe not. But now it's starting to look more like a logo, even though this is still, a little bit on the larger side. You want to keep your icons, your marks, as small as possible. But now I'm creating some space here for that to fit in. And if you take that away, does it work? Sure. If you put it there, does it work? Sure. And again, here, this one needs some work because there's not a lot going on here. You want to make fish tank stand out and the fish accent it, so it still needs some work. So I'm just going to move on from this one, but again, to look at these here, this needs a little more work, probably a better typeface. A little color in there will help, just when you're looking at it, instead of having everything in black, if you just put in a red oak leaf right off the bat, then you could start get some ideas. Be careful with really fine type styles like that, because there's just a lot of fine lines. Not that it looks bad or anything. I kind of like it. It kind of looks like an Oak Hollow Estates, like some kind of upscale estates. This is a little harsh for a retirement village. Might need a little bit more subtlety to some of the typefaces here, and a little more color. It looks like death. With everything in black, it just reminds me of death a little bit. But not far off here, but just needs a little more work of some of the relationships. All right, here's another one here, and this one caught my eye because it was using some cropping up here, which is nice, except it's cropped kind of into nothing, and sometimes that can be an issue. And what could you do with that? Well, you could bring this down, and you could kind of go in here and make a line or a rectangle. I could just make a little tiny thin rectangle, just very small, and I'll make it as wide as Oak Hollow, and then I'll fill it with the same color. So they kind of become an element. Now I'm going to zoom in more so I could kind of scale this down a little bit. You could use a stroke here for this too, but I'm going to use this and kind of scale it down just a little and make a copy of it. And then you could use this Oak Hollow to kind of fit in there like a little banner almost. And then Estates, I could take this, and let's see, this is Notitia text. This is Notitia text. I would just spread this out more. Using this, maybe spreading out the whole distance down at the bottom and possibly putting it in that fill color, matching this one here, or doing something here, maybe putting that in the fill color. But I guess I'm seeing something, I think that's a little harsh, that my lines are a little harsh there, but something like that a little bit, maybe this being smaller as well, and maybe this in that same color. I didn't plan any of this out. I'm just kind of doing it as I go, but maybe this in black down here. And it's just stuff I'm kind of thinking of as I go. Maybe that in gray. That looks a little big, so I might have to scale it down just a little bit. I'd have to go back to my scale tool here, scale it down just a little bit. And something like that might work a little bit better. Again, these lines I put in there are a little harsh, so I'd have to work with that a little bit. But that was kind of, I guess, bothering me a little bit, the crop there, just on where it was cut off and just going into nothing. Maple Hills, and I see these two, and they both have the icon in the middle. I would just kind of not do that and get these together. Let's see, are these grouped? I'm not sure what's going on here. Just put an H back in here if it's missing one, and maybe a space. I might put them together a little bit. I'm not sure if I like it with that separating them. You do have a nook here to put them in, so I might put them in that little nook. I'd be careful about Retirement Village at small sizes. That's really fine. And of course it's Roboto Condensed Light, and you know, I'm always like, oh, let's do that. But I might go just a little bit higher on that because it is condensed and it's light and it's a thin typeface. So I might go in just a little bit here and bring it in just a little bit like that, just so it's not so spread out. It needs to be less lighter, actually. So, you know, something like that maybe. I guess I'm liking it a little bit better than the Maple Hill so separated. I think now it kind of goes together a little bit more. Same thing here. You know, if you take this away, does it work? Not really. So I'm not sure what I do with this. I'm going to let that alone for now. It has a very distinctive typeface with that, so I'm not sure what I do with that now. I'll leave it alone because there's other people who have other wine store ones. I like what's going on here. I like this nice heavy typeface. I like the blue. I like the way that's an accent and fits in there. Be careful with that being too thin, whatever that is. Roboto Condensed. It's light. It's very light, so I'd be careful just with the lightness of it from far away, because you want it to hold up at small sizes. So that's the only thing there. I'm not sure what I do with this. Again, you might want to rework that or rethink that just a little bit more. And some of these I'm just working on relationships. I'm not saying it's the answer up here. I don't know if this is the answer. Matter of fact, this one, I think I'd almost take the leaf and take its setting down, like almost like the transparency a little bit. And maybe this be the same or whatever. So, you know, that way Oak Hollow will stand out, because these lines I have obviously are a little too heavy. So if I went down on the color or just made it a lighter color of this, and then Oak Hollow stood out a little bit more, and you know, you could go bold with that to make that stand out, to make it be a little more significant. Now I don't have these lined up or anything like that, so you know, that's all I'm thinking is keep this in bold, keep this in regular, and then kind of work from there. And you know, and then maybe take the lines out. You know, does it work with the lines out? Maybe does it work with one line? You know, actually, now the way it's setting in there, actually this looks a little nicer. Those lines I had looked a little heavy. You got to watch where the crop is, you know, and where it crops. But that's actually looking a little nicer. And if you took this down, you know, it's not bad. And, you know, it's not a bad relationship now, that one, and it works well at distances as well. So anyway, that's what I'd probably suggest for that. Or, again, recommend to work on a little bit. This line looks a little thick. I'd probably even make that a little thinner. It's a little hard to make it thin. That's too thin. Obviously, I made a rectangle there. It might be better off just to draw a line. I was trying to make it easier, but it might be easier in here to just go in here and draw a line. Then you have a little more control over the thickness. And I'll go in here for the color. I'll use that color. Now I have a little control over the thickness. That might look a little bit better. I'll move it down a little, separate it. And again, I don't know if that should be in black or that should be in a light color, but either way, that's kind of what I'm thinking there with that. Maybe it doesn't look better with the double lines. It was just an idea I had, but something like that. I guess the bottom, spreading that out a little bit. This might look better in gray rather than black. Tone that down as well. You know, going more into the gray mode gives it a nice lighter kind of look. This would even look nice like on a wine bottle or something like that. And that's about it. Let me go back to Files and Oak Hollow Estates. Now I'm looking at these from far away, and that's a little light. That's a little big. That leaf is a little overpowering. Let me go into this a little bit. And this one, I like kind of this look here. I might go smaller with the leaf. Most people probably need to go a little smaller with the leaf, so I'll put that here. I like the way it goes around it. And it may look better in a little lighter color. You know, a little bit lighter, maybe kind of a pale green. This might look better kind of spread out. This is Roboto Extra Light, and that's fine. And I think, you know, try caps just because it creates a nice line underneath because of the up and down of the upper and lowercase letters. That's the only reason I'm doing it. And then spread this out. Spread out the tracking and make it smaller. And whether you're using point size, hard to get in here with the point size. That's why it's... You could do something like that where it kind of balances off. Now that is really light. I might go back to light just to make it work at small sizes. So that could be something where you're balancing off the leaf over here and this over here. So it can be kind of off center a little bit. Move this up a little bit. That could kind of work. You know, that's not far off. This one, again, this is a little lighter here. This is source serif light, and might go with regular and might spread it out just a little bit, just a little, only because just to lighten it and make it a little more readable, because the serif letters are going together a little bit. So I might just scale this up a little in relationship to it. Somebody else had a script like this, and again, this thing smaller. We don't need giant, you know, a giant leaf, something like that. And I'm not sure if I like it in brown like that, like a dead leaf in a retirement village. Maybe give it a little more color. You know, even a red, orangey, something a little more life to it. I'm thinking in a retirement village, a little green. You know, I know they are at the end of their life and their leaves are turning brown, but something like that might look a little bit better. So that's what I'm thinking on that one, even though it looks like the oak one. But the oak one, you could go with something brown. It's estate, so you can do something, a color like that, a burgundy color, anything like that. Nice, rich kind of color. That's probably too much, but I might go into burgundy. That's and maybe a little more redder, maybe a little more burnt red kind of thing. Might look nice. Now the wine store, I'd be careful with spreading out the letters here, because it's just making it wider. And I don't know if that's necessary. It just makes an odd kind of shape here. I don't know if it needs anything. I mean, it's a nice kind of serif font, Source Serif Pro, and I'll just put it back to 0 here. I don't think it needs anything spread out. And this thing, you know, maybe just real small. Just something like that. That may be all it needs. I don't know if it needs anything spread out. You don't want to make it any wider because you're doing it all in one line. So that's making it wide anyway. Now it has kind of a triangle shape. Down here, I don't know if that works as much. I kind of like it sitting up here, kind of sets there like a little emblem, and you could take it away. And it's very simple. And sometimes you do this in a non-italic and just semi-bold. You know, throughout the, you know, just doing the wine store, you could sometimes mix the italic and non-italic. That's kind of a chance you're taking. I don't know if it always works nice. I'm going to undo and put it back in italic. Or you could make these in non-italic and leave the wine in italic. But I just think it works a little bit better, not spread out. Fish tank, I don't like the blue outline here. I think it just makes it harder to read further away. Instead of the blue stroke, why not just fill it with that? So I would just go here and fill it and see if I could grab that blue color, and I'd fill it with that, and I'd take away the stroke. I don't know if the stroke's helping at all. Just going to get rid of it. Now it was making it heavier, but if you're going to make it heavier, then, you know, give it a real heavy typeface. Make it a black typeface. And now I don't think that was, I think the color was a little bit lighter, something like that. And it looks like it's a little spread out. I don't think it needs to be. I'll put it back at kind of like 0, and then just scale it up. Then I would just scale this up because you want this bigger. Let me use the auto width here and the auto height, unless there's a, I don't know if there's an extra like line below here, a backspace. If you ever see a line below there, just backspace. And now I'm going to make that bigger. I'll use the scale tool again, and I want this bigger compared to the fish. Now you might say, well, that's just kind of a boring typeface. That's fine. Can you rotate it down a little so it fits in that nook a little bit better? You know, I don't think that's bad. Or you could even have it below it. I was just saying with the other one you couldn't, but this is kind of leading up to it. You could have it leading up there. Maybe a little bit smaller. You know, you could do something like that. And again, I'm looking at them really small, but they're a little bit more readable here. That looks a little bit better. That looks like a nice little stamp that'll work with or without the wine glass. Okay, back to files. And the first thing I'll see on this one is these being the same. And this is Libre Baskerville. I'm familiar with Baskerville. I think I would take it out of italic and put it in bold and maybe make it all caps. And then maybe make it smaller and spread it out. I like it being under that line there, so I might scale that and make it real small. Real small. I'll zoom in so I can see what I'm doing here. Let me close this up. and spread it out because it's a little too heavy looking right now. Spread it out a little bit. Now, I don't mind it being bold because they're going to have fine lines in them if they're not. In just regular, they might have fine lines. So I still might make it smaller and spread it out more. Because it's very symmetrical. And you could certainly incorporate more brown in here. They look nice. I like the leaves on either side like that, kind of working down. You could even put this in, even if you had that in bold, you could have that in that brown color and then it wouldn't be so harsh. You could take your eyedropper and just click on that and then it wouldn't be so harsh. Maybe this should be in brown. I don't know. There's a couple options here, but again, having it in the same look as that, I think it should, oak hollow should stand out. And again, maybe this should be in brown and this should be in the black color. I'm not sure. I'd have to do that, but I don't want to do too many things here while you're watching. You're going to get bored. Maple Hills, I like this font here. I like this. The red reminds me a little bit sportsy, beerish kind of. I might make it green. It doesn't look bad red, but I kind of thinking more of like Labatt's Ale or a sports team or something like that. So I might change it. I'm rotating it so it goes out a little, so it kind of fits, it kind of points out, and I might even go green. Go a little darker green here. And this is Merriweather, and this should be Merriweather too, and that doesn't look bad. You could try that in italic. And is there an italic? There's bold italic. You could try an italic. That might look okay. And just move it away a little bit so there's a little air in there. That doesn't look bad. That might work in green, in that same green color, or the red color. And that way it's not as harsh. Or this might look better in the green color and that in the black. You know, you could try it both ways. You could go in here and take the eyedropper, put that in the green, and maybe this looks better in black. I don't know. I'm just going back and forth and trying it out. And maybe that looks okay, but that's not bad. Although I do like the green standing out against the black. I don't like them being the same, so I'll undo it and put it the way it was. And maybe this could be toned down. Maybe not black, maybe a gray. So maybe a little more toned down black, you know, something like that. Might help, maybe some warmth in there a little bit, I'm not sure. But again, that might need a little bit of work. It was a little harsh on the front end. This is kind of interesting here, stacking this. The first thing I would think is, I don't need that line. You got a glass there, you don't need a line. I'd get rid of that line, and you could kind of put these next to each other. They kind of look nice. You could make the smaller, possibly. I'm not sure how this is set up here. The having an issue here. Let me sure what's going on with these boxes that I'm looking at here of the text. I'm not sure, but I kind of like that. This I might make smaller. Let me use the scale tool, see if I can get around here. Again, not sure what's going on with the box. I'm not sure what happened, why I'm only seeing a little thin thing like that, but I would make this smaller. I guess if I had to, I'd have to go to the type size here. I'll do the pixel size, if I could get in between here, make it smaller here, and maybe make it lighter, something like that. But I'm not sure what's going on. But a couple things you could do here. You could make it so it aligns to the right, and then you could put this thing over here, possibly take this one and put it in the wine color. Take the eyedropper and put it in that wine color there. So you have some options. Let me move this fish tank off to the side. Have some options here. Now, it works well like that. It could work over here too, without making this a little bigger, but again, it's not the greatest graphic. I'm not, it's just something we did in the one computer graphics class. And, you know, could you get in something like that? You could do something like that. Almost looks like there's a stroke. It's hard to see what's going on here. There is a stroke on here. I'd get rid of it. Don't need a stroke. Now it looks a little lighter, so I might make it heavier to make that kind of stand out. As far as the typeface, it's regular. I'd probably, you know, get in there with bold, make them all bold. Don't use strokes to make things bold. Use the typeface if you have them. And again, not sure what's going on with some of this stuff here, but this could work on the other side here nicely. Something like that. if I adjusted the size a little bit, you know, it works on its own. It could work with that in there a little bit. With some work, I realize this is kind of an awkward graphic to work with, but that could work a little bit. I wouldn't want to make it bigger, but it does fit in the nook a little bit bigger if you did something like that. So I'm not sure. I'd have to work with that a little bit more, but you might want to work with that. This one that I was just seeing here, the fish tank, not into that box thing at the bottom. I just think it would be a problem at small sizes. I'd get rid of the box. I know, I get it. You're trying to make a fish tank, a visual fish tank, but you already have a fish there. So I don't know if it's necessary to do that. You might get some color in here. You might want fish tank to stand out, the to be smaller. Maybe you could work around that a little bit. You know, have this the be something a little bit on the smaller side. You could try that. If I could get in here to the size, I might be able to do that. Work with that a little bit. And then maybe work the fish in there. You know, maybe there's a way to kind of work it in, rotating it, whatever. I know it's a beta fish, so it's kind of, well, it's gold, but it's like a beta fish, so it's kind of hard to work in there. But maybe there's something you can kind of work in there a little bit to get it to fit in there, and maybe a little blue color or something like that. So, all right, there I'm seeing that whole text thing there. Now it's fitting in there. I'm not sure why that's getting a line like that. I'm not sure what's going on there with that, but I guess that, you know, just the fish tank at the bottom, the way it was, I'd kind of work with that a little bit. Don't like the box around it, the fish tank. Anytime you're doing a box around something, it's usually not going to work out well. So that's some of my suggestions on here. It's not every suggestion. I'd have to work with a little bit. I'm just kind of doing it as I'm looking at it right now, which isn't always easy. I'm recording a video, so, you know, I don't have all my ideas. Sometimes, you know, like you do, it takes a while to kind of work through some things. So, but I think those are the only ones I have so far. So I wanted, you know, everybody to look at these and just kind of see what's going on, to kind of compare them with what they're doing as well. Maybe you're doing the same things. Maybe you're doing different things. Maybe you're doing better things. Maybe you're doing worse things. And watch those videos again about the type and mark logos, take the quiz, and rework these as I work on something else for you for Thursday, and maybe something in between too if I get a chance to do that.